groupthink is something that I battle all the time. I can't stand it. It exists. It's very strong on the left. It also exists on the right. There are segments of the right that like everyone to toe a line and everyone to agree all the time. It's much more prevalent from what I've seen on the left, and much more empowered and much more well-organized, should I say, and much more prevalent. That's my experience. But I want to get to something that I teased earlier, which was a story about an animal shelter in California. And this animal shelter is banning NRA supporters from adopting pets. Some of you may have seen this story. It's called the Shelter Hope Pet Shop, and it's in Thousand Oaks, California. And essentially it says, if you support the NRA, if you're not a gun control advocate, you cannot adopt. This is a true story. This is not made up. I know it sounds funny, but it's not. And this is from The Hill. Can we pull that up, Tyler, that column from The Hill? That I don't know if you have that, but it says California Animal Shelter to require those adopting pets to support gun restrictions. So I'm just gonna flip through this a little bit to some of the things that the Shelter Hope Pet Shop owner, Kim Still, feels very strongly about this. And she wrote on the organization's website, if your beliefs are not in line with ours, we will not adopt a pet to you. So that's telling right there. Just stop there for a second. Why? 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 Does everyone need to agree with you to adopt a pet? Why? Does it stop at gun control? I'm just curious, because gun control is a political point. It's very contentious. We a lot of debate, a lot of discussion. Serious. Guns are serious, right? We've seen some shootings, very serious trauma, very personal. But does it stop there? So if I open a shelter and I say, well, I don't want to adopt out to people who support gay rights. Is that cool? That would get a ton of backlash. But is it cool? Again, I'm going to go back to how I feel about this. This is her animal shelter. She can do whatever she wants. Is it bad policy to me? Yes. It's profoundly bad policy. And in this case, animals are people, but to me, the only people that are getting hurt are the cats, dogs, the pets. Because now these pets can't go to the homes of law-abiding citizens who just happen to support, maybe they're NRA members. Maybe they feel that it's important to have a gun to protect and defend their families. They're not harmful. They're not going to hurt those pets. They're not going to injure those pets. So what's the reasoning there? The reasoning is that she needs you to agree or be punished. The group thinkers need you to agree or be punished. You don't get a cat. You don't get a cat. You don't get a puppy. You don't get a puppy. Are you going to change your mind? If you change your mind, you'll get a puppy. Oh, no? Okay, you don't get a puppy. Someone else gets a puppy. I mean, this is like, it's very third grade, but it's also happening. You don't agree? We're going to deplatform you on social media. You don't agree? Well, we're going to try to pull your funding for your film. It's happening all over. This is one example. So the owner comes in and says also, by the way, if you lie about being an NRA supporter, make no mistake, we will sue you for fraud. Go in the extra mile there. Go in the extra mile to take Dusty away. That's the cat. Never had a cat named Dusty. Should have. Honestly, because I had a cat that did kind of look like a dust rag, now that I think of it. I had several cats. Chopsticks, my mom named them all. Scungili. Let's not get into that. Solange is watching at home. She's like, don't share the stories about our pets, AJ. I will, Mom. One day I will. Anyway, so this owner happens to feel very strongly about this. She said that, watching the shooting in Texas, the school shootings, she said that someone at one point she thought had been arrested and involved potentially in a shooting and may have volunteered at the shelter. This is personal. Regardless of the details, this is very personal for her. She's entitled to that opinion. But it's bad policy. It's bad policy. And it's terrible to say to people, you agree with me or you don't get a cat. What? So if you go on the Facebook page to follow up, I went over to the Shelter Hope Pet Shop Facebook page. I wanted to see a little bit more of her explanation and to see some of the comments. I was curious how this was being received. This is California, remember? And she added, this is, I'm guessing, the owner because it says author. To the many angry humans who posted comments here, I will say it again. I should not have to carry a gun to protect myself, my shelter, and to protect my staff, animals, and volunteers. I have the right to adopt to like-minded beings in regard to gun control. Okay. So this is interesting. Yes, you have a right to do that. It's painfully transparent that you're a group thinker. You have a right to do it, but sad for where you are. I feel deeply sad for the owner of this shelter. As someone who has spent my whole life surrounded by people who agree and disagree with me, and I've never had to run into a safe space or threaten them, here we are. Also, an important point to bring up that she mentions here. She says, I shouldn't have to carry a gun to protect my shelter. Okay, well, in a utopia or in The Wizard of Oz, you probably don't. That's great. But what happens, I would love to ask her, if your shelter, somebody decides that they're a criminal, right? They're a bad person. They decide, well, you know what? I'm going to hold up this shelter. I'm going to steal the pets. I'm going to harm. I'm going to steal money. I'm going to do something horrible. And they show up at your front door. What is your solution? Do you understand now why it would be incredibly beneficial for you to have someone in that facility who has been well-trained, who has, been checked out, who is of sane mind, who knows what they're doing, and has a firearm? Or is your plan to hide, call the police, and hope for the best? How close are you to the police station? How long does it take for them to get the message, hop in their car, put their siren on, and drive on over? Are they going to come running in, or are we going to see an issue with law enforcement where they decide, oh, let's mull it around in the hallway for a little while before we go in? So what I'm trying to point out here is I hope nothing terrible ever happens. I want this shelter. I love animals more than humans most days of the week, except for my child and my husband. Everyone else, second to animals. Sorry, mom and dad. No, I'm kidding. But really, I love animals. Everyone who knows me knows I have a soft spot for animals. Never want anything terrible to happen, would be a horrific. But I'm just presenting that as like, hey, just for a moment, just remove your politics from this and remove the slogan of gun control and remove the like, oh, I want to, fit into what's going on. Just think for a second. Think, use common sense. These self-defense measures exist because people want to protect themselves. They want to protect their animal shelter. They want to protect their staff. They want to protect their families. Okay? There's a lot of people out there, and a lot of those people want to adopt pets from a place like this, and they're not harmful, and they're not seeking to do harm, but they are going to come in handy plenty if there's a bad guy or gal out there with a gun that seeks to do harm. You're going to wish for that person to be there. I promise you. I feel safest when I'm in places where I know that law-abiding citizens are armed. No question. So I think what really bothered me about that story was, yes, the groupthink angle, but also just the unwillingness to recognize that you're putting yourself in a position that's horrible. For what? Maybe you don't like guns. Maybe you didn't grow up with guns. I didn't grow up with guns. I grew up in New York City. I grew up in New York City where it was like the police had guns and the bad guys had guns. That was really how I grew up. I didn't grow up in a house where you were trained to use a firearm. My parents didn't have firearms. So it was very new to me, and it took a second of me kind of warming up to the idea that, oh, you can, these things can be used for good. And I had to kind of broaden my mind coming from, Manhattan girl and all that. But all it takes is just a little bit of common sense to just sit back and say, I see where these people are coming from. Even if you don't get there altogether, maybe you're still a gun control advocate, but see where these people are coming from. Just a thought on any issue. If you like the short clip, you can catch another one here, or you can catch the full episode right here.